It is now almost a full week since Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 vanished from radar, and we still don't know where it is, or even for sure the direction it was even flying. Right now, search boats and planes are scouring an even bigger area on both sides of the Malay Peninsula. The search area is expanding to cover more of the South China Sea on the east, the direction the plane was supposed to be flying, but it is also stretching further into the Indian Ocean to the west, on speculation and faint clues that the plane may have turned around. So it isn't clear if we're actually any closer today than we were almost a week ago to finding out what really happened to this plane. Seema Mohsen is monitoring all of the developments from Kuala Lumpur, and she's joining me now live from there. So Seema, did we learn anything new today? There was a press conference.
Well, the press conferences have increasingly been turning into conferences that are trying to refute claims that come into us overnight. The Malaysian authorities are at pains to say that they are sharing all the information they have with us, and we've seen this cyclical trend, really, that we see some information coming from all the other countries that are contributing to this massive search operation. More than a dozen countries, the United States, Australia, New Zealand, Vietnam, all the neighbouring countries, including Indonesia and Thailand. And it seems as though we have this massive jigsaw puzzle that we're trying to piece together the pieces of. And overnight we heard from US officials saying that they are contributing to the search operation way out, far away into the west, in the Indian Ocean towards the Andaman Sea. And we also heard from the Indian Navy saying that they're contributing both ships and aircraft to that. Now that would then marry up with other information we'd heard earlier in the week about the fact that perhaps, just perhaps, this plane did carry on flying for at least up to 4 hours after it disappeared from the radar as MH370, because the transponder was switched off, which identifies this. The Malaysian authorities, though, say that isn't true, that didn't happen. This is what they had to say in the press conference today.
This is a statement from Rolls-Royce. Rolls-Royce continues to provide its full support to the authorities and the Malaysian Airlines. Rolls-Royce concurs with a statement made on Thursday, the 13th of March, by the Malaysian Transport Minister regarding engine health monitoring data received from the aircraft.
And this is, as I say, almost cyclical, really. So we've had this extraordinary exchange between some countries saying this is what's going on, this is how we're contributing to this search operation, and then the Malaysians saying, hang on a minute, that's not true. They're actually coming out and saying it's simply not true. Other developments today that we've had from the press conference, really, are that they are now analysing satellite imagery to try and pinpoint and locate exactly where MH370 is, because quite the opposite we've had over the past week, and it is a week now almost since it disappeared. That area has been expanding rather than narrowing. Relitza?
Did they address a Reuters report, which we have not been able to confirm, that shows, if you look at the plane turning around and the path it was following, that it seems to have followed a deliberate path? Somebody seemed to have been flying that plane. Did they say anything about that?
I mean, well, this is something that they'd already said earlier in the week, that yes, they saw the plane turn on the radar just a short while before it disappeared. Of course, somebody was at the helm of that plane. We assume the pilot, but we don't know, because nobody really knows the circumstances under which it disappeared. The mystery still continues. But yes, of course, they admitted to that last weekend, that it did make that turn. We don't know why. We don't know where it headed to. And that is the mystery that is causing so much frustration amongst us who are asking all these questions, amongst the Malaysian government who's unable to answer them. And more importantly, Relitza, those people, the loved ones of those on board MH370, who are anxiously waiting to hear from the authorities as to what happened to that plane and to their loved ones on board. And by the way, I just want to tell you also about 1 week on, how people across Malaysia, and particularly Kuala Lumpur, are now expressing their grief or their hope over what's happened. This is a major incident and crisis for the people here, of course. First time one of their national one of their planes has disappeared did. It's a national flag carrier, an element of pride for the people here. And of course, 239 people on board have simply vanished. So we've seen various things like message boards going up at shopping malls across the country, more than 20 of them. In the one I visited today, 5,000 people have written messages for those on board, for their loved ones, of support, of hope, saying, please come back. We're all waiting to welcome you. Relitza?
Seema Mohsin, thank you very much. Our Tom Foreman has been monitoring the changes in the search area Seema was just mentioning. He joins us now from CNN Washington with that part of the story. So, Tom, this area keeps expanding, making things even more difficult.
Yeah, really. So this is exactly what you don't want to see in a search like this. Let me bring in the map and talk about how much this thing has expanded from the beginning. We started off with a fairly simple concept here about 7 days ago, which was that this plane took off, flew for less than an hour, and then up here on the way toward Vietnam, it vanished without a trace. Bear in mind, to this day, this is really about all we actually know as a fact. But there have been so many competing ideas about what might have happened that the search area has grown and grown and grown and grown. Now you have a grid work close to the actual search area right in here where we originally began, but it's expanded off to the west. Some people want to expand it hours in all directions based on these reports. And now we're talking about searches occurring over here at the Andaman Islands. The Andamans, in fact, are a string of islands that stretch almost 500 miles up toward Myanmar and then down toward the south. They're only about 32 miles wide at the largest spot there, but most of them are uninhabited. So this is just one of the many possibilities. You know what we don't have, though, Relitza? And this would help a tremendous amount, but we don't have it from the Malaysian government or anywhere. No one has been able to put any kind of percentage of confidence on any of these sites. So when they're searching out here, we don't know if this is, they think it's a 1 in 20 or 1 in 100 chance that it could be here. We don't know if back at the original search area where the plane was, where it disappeared, if that's considered still an 80% chance. And as long as we don't know that, if the government doesn't know it too, if this is a disconnected search, what that means is resources, which may be plentiful but are still precious, get spread out and spread out and spread out, and the chances of finding this needle in a haystack get slimmer and slimmer. Relitza.
Yeah, indeed, one Navy officer said that they'd gone from a chessboard to a football field in terms of this search area.
And I'll tell you something, Relitza, that I think is actually a bad comparison because we can comprehend a football field search. If you look at the farthest reaches of what people are suggesting here, you're talking about 20 million square miles. And that is unsearchable. You cannot search an area that large because there aren't enough resources in the world. Bear in mind, the current search area of around 35,000 square miles is a quarter of what the Air France search area was off the coast of South America, and that took 2 years to find the wreckage.
Tom Foreman, thank you very much.